Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host, your friend of the Leader with a Heart podcast. Today, I have another wonderful guest, my new good friend, Cathy Derksen from beautiful, gorgeous Vancouver, British Columbia. And we connected about, 2 weeks ago on the
About that.
Speakers Bootcamp that our common friend, Corey Poirier, was hosting. Amazing guy. And yeah, we had a chat last week, really fun chat. We connected. And what really stood out is the one word in Cathy's vocabulary I love the most is reignite. It's all about reignition and all that. So her entire her catalog of programs, her life, everything is based on around the word reignite. So we're gonna dive into that and a little bit about her. She said something very powerful and very exciting just happened last week in her life. She was interviewed for a women group by the mighty UN, United Nations, and that's going to go live sometime in March.
Yeah, mid-March.
So a lot of good things happening. What she's doing now is she's helping people remember who they really are, who their goals are, and just getting in touch with their deeper their goals. And she's mainly focusing on helping midlife women, especially women that are stuck in careers. They may be successful on paper, but deep down they're not as fulfilled, and that's her audience. That's what she's doing to help them. And as she loves and love that word, to reignite their passion. So, Cathy, the reignition queen, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. You know, I love the chat we had last week. Very fun chat. And I really loved your story. So that's why we're here. But I don't know if you recall last week, I said the type of conversations I like to have on my podcast is to have a look under the hood, to see what's in your heart, to have a heart-to-heart conversation, hence the name Leaders with a Heart. Are you ready to reignite?
That's right. Let's do it.
All right. Okay. So first of all, we're going to talk about your business a bit later on. But first, as a human being, for people who don't know you, tell us, who's Cathy?
Who's Cathy? Cathy is someone who's on a path of evolution. So I've gone through a lot of major transitions in my life. I've done 2 major career changes. I've divorced, single mom, all those fun things. So definitely I've been on a journey of figuring out who I am and where I belong and what the right fit is. And definitely I'm excited about where I'm at now. I've gone through a few phases of, working in different kinds of environments. My original career was actually in medical genetics. So I worked in hospital labs and public education, and I love biology and genetics and the magic of life. So that will always be my first passion. But then kind of, as life went on and going through divorce and realized I at one point literally threw my life up in the air and reinvented it. So left my marriage, sold my house, set out with my kids. That was my first major career change when I went from medical genetics into financial planning. So that was the first one. And then kind of evolving through that and recognizing that was when I realized that I needed to work in a field that was more people, like direct contact with people. Working in a lab, you're very isolated. You get samples in, samples out, you get names and information, but you never really meet people. You never really feel like you're really connecting with people and being of service like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the big thing for me, recognizing that I am more of a people person, and that I needed to have more of a direct contact and be of direct service to people in a way that I knew that I was really helping people change their life. And I feel that that's such a huge thing that I think working together and we lift each other. And, the quote around, the rising tide lifts all boats. That's one of my favorite quotes, just that idea that, all of us together are what's going to lift us all and create change and build that positive energy. And so I think the more that we connect like this, that's why I love your show, and just realizing that the more we do this and the more people we bring together and spread the word, and the more people that are talking in that more positive way, then I think we can shift out of where we're at right now. The world has definitely become a little bit too toxic from every perspective. So we need to shift that. So thank you for giving it a voice and putting it out there.
Please don't mind. So we have a lot to unpack here, but we'll do step by step. But before we do, I'd like to dive deeper and ask you a rapid fire series of questions to get to further know you as a person. First of all,
Okay.
tell us, Cathy, what makes you happy?
What makes me happy? Definitely being in nature, being where things are just simple and peaceful, walking in the forest, those sorts of things is definitely my biggest thing that makes me happy. And then the other is really that connecting, like really connecting with other people, whether it's my family or just around the world. And that's one of the things that I see as the one benefit of COVID these days is that it has made the world so small that we can so easily reach out to people anywhere. Absolutely. And just really and create real connections with people.
Absolutely. And for me, going back to what you said about the nature, I've been blessed to travel a lot, but I'm always amazed that I'm blessed that we as Canadians, we have one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Especially I used to live in Edmonton, Alberta. I didn't make it to BC, but British Columbia, but I know you guys
we're
are
the best. You got to come out here.
One of the luckiest people as far as the natural beauty. You have the mountains, you have the sea, the forest, everything. And you have probably the best weather in all of Canada. So yeah, absolutely. You're blessed to have the best background in all of Canada. So make the most of it. Absolutely.
Yes, that's what brought me here.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, what makes you smile?
What makes me smile? Oh, puppy videos.
Yes.
One thing I need to do more of is hanging around with people just in fun environments. I mean, quite often we're so used to working and not really doing fun things so much anymore. So I know I need to get back into some kind of play or just some kind of laughing. Yes. And so one thing I don't do enough of these days is laugh.
I was having this very conversation yesterday with another wonderful lady on my podcast. We're talking about playing and laughing. And that reminded me of, I was reading a chapter of a book, maybe a couple of nights ago, a spiritual book that said, what is the definition of love at the spiritual level? It means creativity, being creative. And what fires creativity? Because when you're creative, you create, you make bonds, you connect, you make things happen around you. Because this is one of the reasons we're here, to create. At the spiritual and galactic level, love is about creativity, creation. And then what fuels that is playfulness, the inner child in us. Whether you're 5 or 95 or 250 years old, always, whatever you do, your number one priority other than staying alive is to keep that inner child in you alive, because that's what's fueling you. The moment you silence that inner child, that playfulness, that's when you start dying, because that's when it shuts down everything. And speaking of laughing and smiling, I read a while ago an article, and there was a doctor that was saying, if every doctor in the world were to prescribe 1 hour of mandatory laughing and smiling per day for every individual on this planet, within 30 days, 95% of ailments would be gone. Why? Because 95% of ailments are due to stress. Yes. And when you laugh and you smile, you make your body toxic versus stress. And as a result of that, you reignite, to use one of your favorite words.
That's right.
Mine, the inner child, and the inner child reignites the creativity. And as a result of that, you spread love around you. So it's a circle. So I loved what you said. So just wanted to share that.
I like that. Yeah, no, we do. We just need to laugh more. And I think we've gotten too serious.
Watch cartoons. Busy. I watch cartoons. I love watching. I grew up in France. I love watching French comedies and whatever makes you laugh.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about TikTok. So how TikTok is kind of because all it is short little, and I only watch the funny ones. I don't get into the political things and those, but just short, funny, and just make you laugh and just sort of distract you from being too focused.
Absolutely.
Just laugh.
Now, let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. What makes your soul? What sets your soul on fire? What makes your heart come alive? What makes you reignited like a rocket and ready to take off?
Well, I think the main thing is, and that's one of the big reasons why I made this last career transition that I've made into getting out of kind of that confinements of corporate existence and just getting into a role where I can choose how I'm of service to people. And so I can see where the need is and I can service that need. And so that's what really lights me up, is when I really know that I've had an impact on somebody in a positive way. And when you, because there's an energy that goes between you when there's that aha moment, or just that, yes, you can hear me. Because I think that's one of the things too these days, that we just feel like we're so isolated and alone, and no one's really hearing our concerns or our worries, or we're, what we're really feeling. So just that energy that goes between people, and you really connect in that way, like, yes, you understand what I'm saying, and yes, you've helped me get through that. And it quite often I find, just to help other people, so much of it comes down to that, just actually giving them that space to be vulnerable and to be honest about how they're feeling and what's coming up for them, and what direction they want to go next. Because I think so many of us have been stifled for so long in really being honest with ourselves or anyone around us, really, on how we're really doing, what we really want. And so that's the thing that really lights me up, is when you make that connection with somebody else and realize that you've really made a difference in their day, and which will probably make a difference in their life.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, the greatest reward you get from any work you do, not only for yourself, but for clients, it's not the money, but the transformation.
No.
The transformation and the friendship you earn as a result of that.
Yeah, the real connections. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Oh, what makes me sad and angry? I think one of the things is just seeing how people are treating each other these days is what makes me sad. So even it's like, as a society, we've forgotten basic respect and just simple acknowledgement, and
Yes.
just that person standing over there, even though you don't know them, they deserve the respect and general courtesy that you would give to someone you do know and care about. And so there just seems to be a gap that's formed in the last, I guess it was starting before, but definitely has amplified in the last couple of years. But I would say that's one of the big things that makes me sad, just watching the kind of deterioration of how we treat each other.
I agree, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. So, and all it takes is just to treat that person with dignity, like a human being, just the way you want it to be treated. We're not asking to treat them with, in a special way. Just treat them with respect, with dignity, as you would like to be treated. Simple as that.
And even simple things, like I find, like if I'm in the grocery store or something, and the clerk will often just automatically say, how are you, kind of thing. Like they just are just saying those words, right? And then I actually answer with, I'm fine, how are you?
Yes.
They're not used to someone actually acknowledging them in the first place, but then to actually ask how they are.
Or even better, look at their name tag and say, hey, Mary, hey, John, how's your day? They will be, what?
Yes.
You will almost wake them up like this.
Yeah, even just simple little things like that, just acknowledging that we're there. And again, that we see you, we hear you, we're here together.
Absolutely. Wow. Beautiful. Now, what scares you other than spiders?
What scares me? Oh, that's a good. Well, one of the big things that scares me these days is just having to be more visible on video around the world. That was a big thing I had to get used to. I'm generally kind of an introvert, and not used to putting myself kind of out there in the world. And so that was definitely one of the big fears that I had to embrace and push through. And for 2022, my word of the year is courage. And having to kind of step into things that aren't my normal comfort zones, and to do those sorts of things like that aren't the things that I would do in my normal life. So that's courage is my word.
Yes, courage is a beautiful one. It's probably one of the key ingredients of one of the keywords, ignition and reignition. You need courage for that. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Awesome. Now, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Superpower. Well, the superpower that I've been told that I have is that people trust me almost instantly.
I agree. You have this
So
endearing personality. Yes, easy to talk to.
even sometimes I'll be like in the grocery store or walking down the street, and people will just start talking to me about, just like they're like we. And quite often my daughter will even say, like, do you know that person? It's like, no. But and especially working in my last career, I worked in financial planning. And so it was really important to be able to get that trust and to have that comfort together. Absolutely. So quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I found is my superpower, is just a natural, automatic level of trust.
Is that something you add naturally since you were born, or something that you honed in over the years?
Well, when I look back, I would say I've always had it, but I've never really recognized it until I've, kind of gotten this time of sort of personal development and looking at my natural skills and what am I good at? What are my challenges? That kind of thing. And that's where it really kind of came to mind that was one of my natural abilities.
Awesome. Now let's move forward. Let's talk about your path. But before that, let me ask you a fun question. Do you like traveling?
I do. I haven't for a long time, but yes, I love going places and meeting new people and experiencing new things.
What's your very first trip you took?
I guess define trip.
Whatever you
want. Does it have to be a certain distance, or
whatever you want?
When I was a kid, we moved a lot. So we lived in different places, and so all over Western Canada, Northern Canada, Northwest Territories, Nebraska, and back. So I've lived as far south as Nebraska and as far north as the Northwest Territories. And I've lived in Quebec and Toronto, Vancouver, many places in BC. So I've moved a lot. So that I guess you could call traveling. Yeah. The first actual trip that I really remember was when we lived in the Northwest Territories and we traveled down to Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
So that was a long trip. Drive to Edmonton, fly to LA.
Oh, wow. How was it like living up north there? Because the northern I've been to was Slave Lake, close to northern Alberta. But how was it living like in northern Territory? How long were you there, and did you experience the winter there?
I was there for 4 years. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I was a kid, so that was from grade 1 to grade 5 that I was up there. And as a kid, I loved it because we were outside all the time. We lived in a very small town. I think there was only about 400 people in the town. Wow. It was a mining town. So it was only there because of the mine. And it actually has been plowed under since then. So the mine closed down and the town literally is gone.
Wow.
So yes. So so as a kid, I loved it because we were just outside all the time. There was really and at that time too, that was in the early 70s. There wasn't a lot of fear about who's around or what kind of danger.
Yes.
The biggest danger was the bears that might wander into town, right? But they're just looking for garbage. They're not looking for you.
Do you have any encounters with bears or wolves or anything?
Oh, yes. No, we used to, for fun, go out towards the town dump and play chicken with the bears. Don't tell my mom. No.
We won't tell her unless she listens to this. But
well, and it's funny too, because right now I have an amazing sense of direction. Like I literally sense and feel, like my daughter can tell you all kinds of stories of how I found our way to some place that I'd never been to before without really using the map, and just kind of felt my way. And I think a lot of that's from those days living up in the north. And we were literally on our bikes in the bush whenever we weren't in school. So we had to be able to find our way home. You had to have a sense of where you were and how to get back. And so I think that's where it came from, that I just, all those times of just being out and having to know where I was and how to get back. And now I just have this sense of direction that I just can find my way no better.
So how was it living in a place where during the winter you barely see the sun and during the summer you barely see the evening? Is it easy to
Mm,
adjust or
yeah.
is it hard or?
Well, as a kid, you just do.
Mhm.
I mean, the cold I think was worse though than the light. Than
How
I
cold does it
remember
get?
days. Oh, I don't remember the numbers now, but I remember days walking out to school and the hair in your nose is just freezing to it.
So
You step
below
outside and
40s?
it's like you can't breathe.
So was it below 40s, below 50?
I would say it must have been, yeah, because
Wow.
like I said, you literally walked outside and could hardly breathe because you just would.
So they wouldn't close the schools below 30, for example, now as they do now?
I don't remember them ever closing the school. But again,
Because
it
I
was a
think,
small town, right? You could walk
okay.
everywhere. So you didn't have to drive, you didn't have to, you just would walk everywhere you went.
Because I think here now in Ontario, if it's below 30, they close the schools if there's heavy snow. At least nowadays, maybe
But
way
this was the
back it was different.
70s. Come on.
Okay. Yeah, you guys were much tougher than us. Yes, I get it. All right. Awesome. Did you one of the things I really want to see, and I only experienced it once in my life, was the Milky Way one night coming
Mm,
from a job in northern Alberta in winter.
yeah, the
I
Northern
was
Lights.
absolutely blown away. It was so cold. At
Yeah.
first, I didn't want to get off the truck. And my boss just stopped. He said, okay, come outside. I said, no, you can't even pay me to go outside right now. I said, just come. So I said, okay, let me see. And he told me, look up. I looked and I was like, and then he literally had to physically take me, put me back in the truck. I completely forgot about the cold.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to kick
Yeah.
your ass if you don't come in. I said, okay.
It's
Wow.
mesmerizing.
Oh,
Yes. It's just
yes.
so beautiful and so strange.
Yeah, the Milky Way and the Northern Light. I haven't witnessed the Northern Lights yet, but that's on my bucket list. Wow, awesome. Now, I love traveling. You do. So let's talk about a different type of traveling now. Let me take you now on a trip down memory line. Go back to when you're a young girl growing up. You know, when we're kids, people around us, friends, family, teachers, relatives ask us, so Cathy, what do you want to become when you grow old? What was your answer back then as a young girl?
Um, I've always said that I've been a biologist
Mm.
since I could walk. When I was little, I used to come home with pockets full of worms, and I would collect every living thing that I could. And at one point, I actually had like a little zoo going on in my bedroom where I had
Whoa.
jars all over the place with different kinds of creatures that were. And spiders were the one thing that I've tried to incorporate in my zoo, but I really don't like them. So they
Okay.
but now I've had lizards and frogs and snakes and all sorts of furry things. And
All right.
so I would,
Cool.
so yes, being something to do with biology was always my original
Mhm. All
passion.
right. So now, growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love school? Did you hate school?
I like the social part. My family, many of us are dyslexic. I'm also dyslexic, and so definitely, and again, in those days, there was really no understanding, or you were just a slow reader or a bad speller. There was no understanding that there was a reason why, right? So anything that had to do with any volume of reading or speed reading or anything that was timed definitely was more challenging for me. I've always been good at learning. So as far as when there was no time pressures around the spelling and the read faster or get through this book. I mean, all the way through university, I don't think I finished a book. Back then, Cole's Notes were my go-to. Now it's audiobooks. If there was audiobooks back then I would have been a lot better. But
Sure.
but yeah, just because I read a lot slower
Mhm.
than most, it would have to kind of reread. But no, but when I have the information, I'm a very good student and went through university and a few different levels of education. So
You major in university.
biology.
Okay. I'm surprised. Okay. So I guess growing up, biology was your favorite subject too, right?
Biology and math. I was always good at math.
Okay. So
Math and science, yeah.
you love dissecting the poor little frogs.
Well, the worst part of all of that is the smell of the formalin that they're in.
Wow. Okay. And was there any subject you could not stand at all in school?
I guess more things like literature and like
Mm,
things that did require a lot of reading
yes.
and then kind of dissecting the reading. I
Mhm.
would say were probably my biggest challenges.
Okay. Growing up, what was your very first job?
Oh, well, when I was a kid, I did things like shoveling snow and mowing lawns and those kinds of jobs,
Taking
delivering
care of animals?
newspapers.
No.
Um, I did some of that and some babysitting. Those are kind of like looking after animals, but yeah, definitely dog sitting and looking after people's homes with their cats and stuff when needed. So I guess kind of just general small jobs like that when I was through high school. And then the first kind of jobs that I had after high school were, kind of in the food services, like the usual jobs that you can fit in around school and other things. And
Did you at any times consider going and becoming like a veterinary?
um, it did pass through my mind, but there aren't that many schools in Canada
Really?
for becoming
Wow.
a vet. I think
Oh,
at that time there was only the one in, I think, Winnipeg
okay.
was the only one. So it was, and med school, I thought about going into medicine, and but by the time I got through my 4 years of my degree, I thought, okay, I need to just get a job. And
Yes. Wow. That's a great segue. Now, let's talk about your path from the moment you left school to now. How would you describe your path? What do you say was pretty much straightforward, smooth sailing once you get into one line? Or was it like more like turns and twists, like a roller coaster?
well, I actually was quite lucky that when I finished my degree, I stumbled upon a career path. I mean, that's one of the challenges with most degrees is they don't really train you for a job. They just give you education, and then you've got to figure out what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, there was a new program in my area that it was cytogenetics. So
Okay.
I had done my degree in biology with a focus on genetics, and I just stumbled into the first year that this program was available. So it was basically a technology program that trained you for the job of working in genetics in the hospital field.
Wow.
So the job that I had from there was literally analyzing chromosomes of people. And so diagnostic work. And it's funny that you'd mentioned the dissecting things earlier, because a lot of my years working in genetics, I worked in studying miscarriages. So helping diagnose what happened, what went wrong. And so a lot of my work was in dissecting and culturing and growing and analyzing miscarriages.
You notice any pattern? What is the number one, number two most common cause of miscarriages?
Well, from the work that we were doing at that time, major chromosomal abnormalities were a big part of the cause of the ones that got to us. So there's, of course, all sorts of different stories depending on family history and other things that go wrong, but major chromosome problems are usually the cause of early loss from a genetic point of view.
Okay. Wow. Now, there's a saying, I'm sure you heard of it: change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we keep on telling ourselves inside our head
Yes.
all day long. So when you, Kathy, had to change your story to either change your life or bring your life to where you want it to be, how did you do it? Did you do it through the help of friends, families, mentors, books? Tell us the process you used to change your story to change your life.
Well, a lot of that for me started, I guess it was over 10 years ago now, when I realized that my marriage was getting quite toxic and my whole family was in a very toxic environment, and recognized that I needed to make big changes for all of us. And that was when I made my first major career change as well. So
Mhm.
in the process of leaving the marriage, moving on from there, I realized that the job I was doing at that time wasn't, like I said earlier, really fitting with how I felt I needed to be of service. And so at that time, when I was going through all of those changes and realizing, okay, I have to do something different, I have to make some big changes, it was in connecting with the local communities that were around, so much more like personal development and understanding myself. A lot of breath work was what I connected with at that time, people that I had met, and that was what they were doing. And the breath work techniques that they were doing at that time were extremely helpful in just bringing out things that you weren't thinking about, or that you were kind of blocking from yourself, and allowing yourself to think differently in what's next, what are my options, where do I go from here. So I've always found that connecting with community and learning new tools and just getting that support from a different community has been really helpful for me. And I guess that's part of how I got to where I'm at now, where I want, that I am one of the ones creating those communities that are supporting other people that are going through their own big changes, and recognizing that they can make those changes. Because for many people, and for most of us, that I'd say that first step, and that first recognizing that you need to make a change, or you want to make a change, just those first steps of, well, what do I do next? Like, how do I even know what I can do, or where I go from here, or how do I do this?
Wow, fascinating. Now, let's talk about your business. Tell us what kind of wonderful impact you're having out there in the world, and how are you helping people to reignite their passions?
Yes. Well, my company is called Inspired Tenacity, and that comes from my understanding that really, to make any big change in your life, those are two of the key ingredients. You need an inspiration of what you need to change or do next, and you need that tenacity to just keep at it until you get there. And it's funny that we mentioned courage earlier too, because to me, that's the word that goes in the middle. So inspiration, courage, and tenacity are the three ingredients that to me are the critical steps of making any big change. And back when I first made the shift from working in the lab to working in financial planning, that was one of my key things, was to be that one to help women make changes in their own life, to improve their own life. And so that's kind of where that started. And now, over the last few years, recognize that I need to be more personalized and specialized in how I can help women change their life. And so that's when I left the corporate financial planning world and went into my own business, so that now I can help women recognize those steps that they need to take, as well as, money's intertwined with everything. So my background in finance is still very helpful, but it's not my main focus, because one of the things that I realized in doing financial planning is that the part that really needs to happen first is the part of people really imagining and creating a vision of where they want to be going. What do you want your life to look like? What is that next thing that you want to work towards? Because you can do all this financial planning, but if you're not really planning for anything, then what's it for? You come up with all these numbers, and most of the numbers are based on what someone else told you should be doing, or you might need, or, they're not really based on anything. Whereas if you've created that dream and that vision of what you actually want next, and the direction you want to go, and what you want your life to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years, then you're much more focused on how to get there, because now there's actually your own story that you've attached to it. So that's where I've brought myself now, that I can really focus on those things that help people to recognize their own brilliance and recognize what excites them, and help them and support them in moving in that direction.
Love that. Now, tell us about the structure of your program. Is it you work one-on-one with your clients? Is it more like small group? Is it like a big group? Is it like and how long does it take for them to get results? Like, for example, for my program, within 3 weeks, they will launch their podcast. Like for you, is it like a time frame you say, okay, within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, or is it like an ongoing, lifelong process? So tell us all the details about your program, so that someone that's watching this, they can have the full picture.
Exactly. Sometimes I do small groups, but I find that working one-on-one definitely creates more impact for people, just because everybody is at a different point in their life and their story is different in the direction they want to go. So one-on-one is the main focus of my work. And of course, how quickly somebody sees change is completely dependent on them as well, on where they're at in that journey to start with, and how dedicated they are to actually making change and absorbing the information and using the information. And so I have my programs. I have my 1 month program, 3 months, and 6 months. So the 1 month is really focused on just helping people make that first big step, that those decisions around what you really want to be working towards, working on what are the things that have been stopping you so far. And then once we kind of get those things in place and start building that path of what direction are we going, then over the 3 month and 6 month programs, we build a lot more into it around really understanding what's stopping you, creating those new habits, and moving forward in that right direction. I mean, one thing that I've really found that when people do realize they want to make a big change in their life, first they get stuck at that first part of, I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to figure this out. And then once they get started on a path, quite often as the habits need to get adjusted, something will happen in life that'll get in the way, and they'll slip back into what they were doing before and kind of lose track, and it'll drift away this new plan that they had. So that's when the 3 and 6 month programs are really that much more important, because it's that ongoing support and reminding and moving forward and working together. And so that's kind of how my system works. And we've been getting some really amazing results, and everything from major career changes to lifestyle changes and relationship changes. And sometimes it's just a matter, like you were saying, of this whole reignite your life, that sometimes you don't really need to make the bigger change. You just need to remember what it was you loved about it before.
Yeah. See, that's a perfect segue, because you mentioned amazing results. Now, I'd like you to share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
Well, one of the most common ones that I see are women that have been doing a job that they started doing, say, 20 years ago when their kids were young. It was a job that fit into their family lifestyle at the time, but not necessarily a job that they were really excited about. But they've been doing it for so long that they felt like, well, I'm too old to make a change, or what would I even do if I made a change? And so for a lot of those women, they're caught in this world of just being frustrated and angry. But of course, in our society, they're really not allowed to acknowledge that they're angry. And so there's so much of that stress that piles on, and those diseases, those, the stress causes so much trouble in our bodies. So that's one thing I really like to remind people of, that being stuck in that kind of thing, there's costs, financial costs, there's relationship costs, and there's health costs. Because I mean, your relationships suffer when you're not happy. Your health suffers when you're stressed and just frustrated. So focusing on all of those things, really changes people's lives. So I've taken some of these clients that have gone from that feeling of just stuck and angry to now living like their health is better, their relationships are better, they're shifted into a career that they're actually excited about and feeling positive about. And it's amazing how that person, they almost become a different person, because they go from that angry, stuck person to that excited, outgoing, energized person. And that's where I love the word reignite, because they really have come back on fire from where they were.
Speaking of the word reignite, when did you start using it? Was that something natural you've been using all your life, or just was a specific moment as, hey, this isn't the word for me?
Yeah, no, it really has been while I've been doing these programs, and that word just fit. And sometimes people have said, oh, you should shift this, you should try that, but I keep coming back to that word. And reignite and tenacity are two words that I just feel they connect everything that I'm doing so completely.
And we need those in life, all of us, because we all need to have, as we're talking before going live, we need to have that fire inside of us, that inner child to keep us going. And that's what where the fire, the fuel for this ignition comes from, and tenacity, because we all go through dark times, hard times, and we need to keep going, So absolutely.
Exactly.
Wow. Now, how are you getting your clients?
Well, I do a lot of networking. I've been really focusing on a global community, different women's organizations. I've been involved in several book projects now. So I've got 5 books that are out there and Amazon #1s, and
Wow.
I've got 3 more book projects. And now I've worked with 5 different publishing groups. So each of those groups, you meet a new community. From those groups, you meet more people. And so that's been a big way of just kind of connecting into different communities and speaking at different kinds of events. So whether it's summits or on podcasts like this, and just really getting the word out there to a broader audience of how I'm able to help, how easy it is to just connect and move forward from there. So that's really what I've been doing, is a lot of just connecting and talking to people like you about what's going on and how we can work together.
What's the topic of your next book?
The next one, so I've got 2 more that I've finished writing that are out, just going for publishing right now. The one that I'm writing right now is a global project so it's literally women around the world that are contributing to this book. And so that one will be a more like a bigger story of my own journey and how I'm using my skills and what I've learned in my experience to now help a global group of women make similar shifts in their life.
With which group are you working right now?
For that book, that one is Story Chest is the name of the publisher that we're working with on that one.
Have you heard of Mary Gooden from Divine Publishing?
No.
Okay, that's the one I'm working with right now myself. And amazing lady, got on my podcast. We connected right away because she is a very easy to talk to, and we just connected, and she found the right words, even though I told her, listen, I want to have a book, but I'm just too damn busy right now. But she was able to find the right words for me. And, the topic of the book is surrender. And I said, you know what, just surrender. I said, okay, sure, I'll surrender. Let's do it. So amazing. If you want, I can connect you to her, because it's always good.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
So far, all my books have been collaborative projects. So
Yes.
we each write a chapter and contribute. So I'm dabbling with the idea of working on my own book where I'm the only contributor, but
yes,
I think that's still down the road a bit, because that would be a much bigger project.
There's 2 ways you can do that. One way is you've done a few of those collaborative books. Each chapter you wrote, you can expand that into a book. That's easy. And the other one, which is my favorite, I don't know if I told you that last time, but it's through having your own podcast, because podcasting is the easiest way to get your own book. One 200-page book is about 60,000 words, roughly speaking. A 30-minute podcast episode is 6,000 words. So once you have 10 30-minute podcast episodes, you have technically enough content to write a book. So as long as you release just 1 episode a week, within 3 months, you will have enough content for a book. That's a mathematical certainty. So I think that would be the easiest, fastest way for you to publish your own book, because I know when you stare at a computer and the blank screen, the cursor moving, it's an awful feeling. Let me tell you. Even me, I'm a chatty guy. I love talking. I have a lot to say, but when I started working on my own chapter, I'm like, oops, what am I going to do?
What do I say?
Yeah. So I know. So you use that. Seriously, use the podcast. That's going to be the easiest way you can, transcribe your shows. You can write a book on themes, like major themes, like tenacity, ignition, whatever, love, whatever. You can do, showcase a collection of these amazing people you interview, or even the lessons you learned from talking. For example, initially I want to write my own book after reaching 100 episodes. Now I'm at 154. I think this will be 155-hour episode. So now I have technically enough content for 15 books. And one of those books I want to write is the lessons I learned after speaking with over 155 amazing leaders with a heart from all industries all over the world. And that's something you can also very easily do as well. So again, don't sleep on that, because podcasting has changed my life and was one of the easiest, best, fastest, most efficient ways to publish your own book.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a lifelong learner, and I love having conversations like this and meeting new people and just hearing a different perspective or a different set of experiences. And so, yes, I think podcasting is definitely something that I will work into the next little while.
Yes, absolutely. And when you want, I would be happy to help you because that's what I do as well. So we'll talk after. But anyways, now,
Yes.
let me ask you another question now. Let's move forward and talk about cause. This is the theme of this podcast, cause and impact. What would you say is for you, Cathy, a cause that you're dearly passionate about?
Definitely my big passion is helping midlife women just get on with their life. Because in my mind, we have to plan to be alive into our 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, so many of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 60s like the new 40.
Absolutely.
You know, people are going into retirement and they're still feeling young. They're still, you know, it's not a time to be slowing down in life. It's a time to be, you know, again, reigniting your life and finding your brilliance again and actually doing something that excites you, whether it's a job kind of thing, a business, or whether it's hobbies or just helping in the community. You know, so that's the whole thing that I'm really focused on, is helping women recognize that there's so much more in life still, that, you know, people in general, we need a reason to get out of bed in the morning. We need to feel that we're contributing and that we're valued. There's a value to us being here. And, you know, so that old idea of retirement where we would, you know, watch TV and garden, you know, I mean, that's great as side hobbies, but that's not life, you know. So many people, we need to recognize that and allow ourselves to step into that next chapter of our life and step into that next thing we're going to do. So that's the big passion for me, is just that really I've decided that I'm really focusing on words more like disruptor and catalyst, that, you know, my job here is to poke people. Wake up. Snap out of it.
Absolutely. You mentioned something that really caught my eyes. You said 60s is a new 40. You know, when I was growing up, people that were 45, 50 were considered old, and it looked old.
Yeah.
But now when someone is 40, 45, they look as if they were 25. You know, as long as they take care of themselves, they didn't smoke too much or drink too much, they're still pretty good. Even at 50, I've met 55-year-old people that look like 35 because you know, and I've met people that are 80 but look like maybe 55. Mm-hmm. So with the progress of technology, medical, and the overall higher quality of life and all that, so absolutely. I would even go as far as saying that even 70 is the new 45, or, you know, whatever you want, because people still look good.
Yeah. And you think about it from a brain health point of view as well, that again, the more active we are, the more we think, the more we socialize, the more we interact, we keep our brains and our bodies healthier longer. Whereas getting more stagnant and, you know, less socializing, less learning, you know, we get old fast. So staying busy, recognizing you've got a reason to be here, having your own cause that you're digging yourself into, you know, that's my big passion right now, is really getting people. And I've really been focused on midlife women, mainly because that's my experience that I know I can relate with. Absolutely. But I'm really discovering more and more too that I guess men are going through similar. I guess we always called it like a midlife crisis before, when we would, you know, just recognize like, what am I doing with my life? This isn't where I want to be, you know. So definitely kind of working with people around the world, of just recognizing that now is not the time to slow down and think about, oh, I'm just gonna golf and garden. I mean, now's the time to recognize that you're smart, you've got all that wisdom and experience that you've gathered over the years. Let's go use it.
And a beautiful word to play around. Well, maybe not right now, but pretty soon it's going to be back to even better than before.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So now I love talking to you because we have a lot in common. I love your fire about ignition and all that, reignite. I can relate and resonate with that a lot. But let's start wrapping things up. And to finish off, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions on advices. Ready?
All right.
What would you say has been so far the best piece of advice you've received?
Well, going through this journey of setting out on my own to run my own business has definitely been a huge learning curve. And so the best advice that I think that it's taken me a while to really listen to it and take it to heart. But the whole idea that we have to look after ourselves first, we tend to get caught up in just working, and I'll rest when I finish doing this, or I'll take a break when I'm done doing that, or I'll get some exercise after I do this. And we tend to get caught up in that working, busy, and not look at least for myself. I know that I don't look after myself as well as I should. And so really coming to realize that really, if you don't look after yourself, then you really have nothing else to give. The whole idea of, you can't pour out of an empty cup. It's so true. You can't give what you don't have to give. So that's one of the big ones for me and I keep reminding myself, and I'm working at it.
I agree, because we tend to always put ourselves last, and that's not productive, because for you to be productive and useful and achieve your goals, you need to become the greatest version of you. If you're sick or you're not able to produce or whatever, you won't be of any good out there.
Exactly. So yes, that's advice that I'm taking to heart.
I agree. Me too. Now, on the other hand, what would you say has been so far the worst piece of advice you've received, other than get a job? Stop wasting your time with this entrepreneurship thing.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. When you first start out as an entrepreneur and you're stepping out of a corporate world where everything was set, you had to follow the rules, you had to do it their way. There was really no creating anything of your own. So it really is like drinking out of a fire hose of information when you first get going. And a lot of the business coaches that I've met were really focused on just blasting out huge numbers of contact. So it almost didn't really even matter if you had any relationship with people. You're just blasting out to as many people as you can. And that that model doesn't work for me, because I'm like you say often, that it's the relationships and it's that connection and it's that really getting to know who somebody is and how you can help them. And just gathering more isn't really going to even if your perfect person is in that big mass of people you've collected, if you have no real connection with them, you'll never know that that's your perfect person. That's, your ideal client and your best friend could be standing right in front of you, but if you're not really talking to them and you're not really getting to know them, you'll never know that. So to me, that's one of the big shifts that I had to make, was that no, that model doesn't work for me. The model that works for me is getting to know people, seeing how I can help them, and how, we can work together to help more. So that was, I'd say it was some of the advice that I had to cast away, was yes, we do need to reach a wider audience, but we really need to focus on building relationships and just connecting with that.
Yeah, that was
really
also
at the heart.
One of the most powerful realization I've had to come to do was, when we grow up in school, or even people around us, so-called gurus, tell us business is all about the numbers game. Sure, numbers matter.
Go for no.
Yeah. Keep hustling, keep following up, keep harassing people, follow up 25
even if they
times.
say no, just keep at them until they say yes. It's like,
exactly.
Well, no, if they said no.
But then I realized that, hey, what is actually business? Business is a relationship nurturing process. People do business with people they can relate and connect. For that, you need to take the time to get to know them, because once you get to know them, and that's one of the lines I use. It's a cheesy line, but for me, it's funny and I like it. Is when you work with people that connect with you, that you get to know them, then you will not have to pitch, convince, seduce, or kidnap them to do business with you. They will be coming after you,
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Now, imagine that you were blessed with a time machine and you can go back in time and sit face to face with an 18-year-old yourself. What would be the number one piece of advice you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
Well, actually, I think the one piece of advice that I would give to myself at that point was be careful about who you marry.
Oh, yes.
Make sure you pick the right one the first time.
That's a good one. Yes, yes, yes. Because there's no, well, it's not like picking up an item from the mall. There's no exchange or refund. Yes, there is, but it's going to be very painful.
Exactly. And those are critical times in your life. Those
Yes,
young years that they do impact your direction and your mental
totally.
health. So, yes.
Totally. Now, I know you don't have a podcast, but imagine you had your podcast and today you're interviewing the most special person in the world, yourself. So, what is the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. What is the first question that comes to your mind?
Oh, what do I want to ask myself? Oh, I guess what's next?
And what is your answer?
Well, I've been really fine-tuning my approach to how I'm creating my business. And I think what's next is really focusing more on a speaking side of my career. And so, I mean, I've been really focused on doing a lot of coaching and getting information out, but I think even speaking at events where there's just being able to reach a bigger audience. And I think that's one of the great things about podcasts too, though, that you are reaching out to a huge audience.
Absolutely. Worldwide.
Exactly, without the expense and the travel and everything else that might come with going to events and doing, and again, you're limited to that group that's standing in front of you. So I think podcasting probably will be part of that next thing, because definitely speaking to a bigger audience is definitely where I want to shift.
Absolutely. Nothing better than podcast because the kind of connection you can have with a podcast with your audience is unmatched. You know, when someone listens to the radio or turns on the TV, usually it's loud. There's lots of distraction around it. But when it's podcast, it's you and them in their earbud. You get a very intimate connection with them. And usually when they listen to
Right.
podcasts, sorry, it's when they're either going on a walk, biking, doing the dishes, even on a long drive.
Yeah. Yes.
And they focus on what you have to say. The kind of intimate connection that you get through a podcast, it's unmatched anywhere else from my experience. So absolutely, the podcast is gonna take you in your business next level. But also, podcasting is very fun. You have wonderful conversation with amazing people that you relate, and it's gonna do wonders both for you personally as well as your business. Anyways, now my favorite question to ask my guests: what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the greatest impact, greatest positive impact in both your life and business? By small, I don't mean something small. I mean something, one thing you've done that has had the greatest impact in your life. For me, it's been starting my podcast. What about you, Cathy?
I think leaving my job.
Oh, yes.
And actually, it's pretty much exactly a year now that I came to that final decision that I'm giving my notice. It was actually February 19th last year that I gave my notice. So that was that one phone call of, okay, things have to change. And so it was, that's that call that changed everything.
How did you feel before, during, and right after this call?
Before there was definitely some like that fear of what are they going to say? Are they going to be mad at me? Are they going to be, how that, I was actually surprised. They were very understanding. And when I was working in the finance industry at that time. And most of the time in that industry, when you say you're leaving, they kick you out immediately. So I was prepared for them to just say, okay, close your computer and you're done right now. But when I made them realize that I'm not going to another bank, I'm not going to another financial group, I'm doing my own thing, they were actually extremely cooperative, and they actually asked me to continue for the next 2 weeks and just finish up with some of my clients and tidy things up for the next person. So after the call, it was actually a very different feeling. I was surprised that they wanted me to stick around and just finish things up, and I was relieved that they were understanding and cooperative and nice about it. And I, of course, was very relieved that I had not just made the decision, but acted on that decision. And I'm a big believer of, burn the boats. You've made the decision, burn the boats, you're not going back.
So that was my next question. So during those 2 weeks after you had that conversation with your boss, did you at any time consider making a U-turn?
No,
No, it was
no,
one-way
definitely
street.
not. No,
Okay.
I'd come to that. It was a very, very solid decision that I was moving in the right direction, and that going backwards was not an option.
And to get on that call, how long were you planning that? Was it something very spontaneous? It was something that was lingering in your mind for weeks and months until you say, no, okay, you know what? Today is the day.
Well, I'd been working on, I'd had the idea for several months before that I wanted to get more into the coaching, that side of things. So I'd already been taking some courses and getting started on my own journey that way, and just sort of learning what was involved and what the different steps were. So I had already started that, but of course, making that actual decision and making that phone call are a whole different thing. So it was actually my birthday. So
Oh,
that was how I set the date. I said, for my birthday, I quit.
greatest gift ever. Wow. Well, happy birthday in advance. A couple of days from now, and treat yourself with a wonderful bottle of wine, whatever you want. And yeah, because that's a big move. Absolutely. Did you share that plan of quitting with anyone around you, family, friends?
Just kind of right near the end.
Okay.
I kind of warned my kids, just because I figured, okay, I better just tell them now, because they're going to find out eventually.
Yeah. Mom, what are you still doing? Is 11 o'clock and you're still sleeping? What's going on?
Well, no, that's never been my lifestyle. But
No, I'm joking with yeah.
yeah.
All right. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Now, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
The simplest way is my website is just inspiredtenacity.com.
Wow.
And on there is my email and my LinkedIn, my Facebook. And so I've got buttons on there to book a call. So it links directly to my calendar. You can book a time to chat and see how we can work together. On my website, I've got information about my programs, my books, different things that I've been involved in. So that's the simplest way. LinkedIn is where I'm generally most active. So to look for any kind of live videos and things that I've done are usually on LinkedIn.
And your LinkedIn is under your name?
It is actually Cathy Derksen Inspired Tenacity, I think is how it.
All right.
I'll have to go and look.
No worries, I'll find it. Or if not, I'll just ask you and you can send it to me. I will put all of those in your show notes. Listen, Cathy, absolute blast, pleasure talking to you. So easy to talk to you, so fun to talk. And I love how candid you are. You have a powerful story, powerful and inspiring mission. And I really love, the keyword that you use to build around with it, which is reignite. We all need that. Because that's what's, keeping that inner child inside of us alive. And that inner child is basically the entire essence of life inside of us,
Exactly.
So I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your smile, with your presence, with your impact, with your mission. Stay safe. Stay awesome. God bless you, my friend. We're definitely going to be having, conversation on an ongoing basis. So thank you and have a fantabulous rest of the week. Happy birthday again in advance, and celebrate that both your birthday and your quitting your job. Thank you very much. Take care.
Well, thanks for having me.
Very pleasure. Ciao, ciao. Bye.